The Detroit Lions offense is one of the most explosive and one of the most dynamic offenses that is in the NFL, but they could always stand to have yet another playmaker on their offense, and we're going to talk about one they could add in the draft in today's episode. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. It doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, for this episode today, folks, we are going to shift from the defensive side of things, and we're now going to go to the offensive side of things. We're now going to talk about what the Lions could add potentially in the draft for their offense. Again, the Lions right now, they are pretty well set on offense. Everybody knows it. The Lions, like I've said multiple times, they have one of the most dynamic, one of the most efficient, explosive offenses that are in the entirety of the NFL. And the Lions are one of those teams that it's like, listen, could you possibly find another way to add another weapon to this team? You could, but it would be a little bit hard-pressed to do so because the Lions are literally loaded to the brim with weapons. I mean, for goodness sake, they've got Jahmyr Gibbs, they've got David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Khalif Raymond, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, it is just loaded for bear with all these different offensive playmakers. But I will say this right now. A lot of Lions fans, prior to the whole free agency period, prior to everything that transpired, with the combine and everything else, most Lions fans would have told you straight-faced that this was going to be a draft that was almost certainly going to be primarily a defensive draft. And I would say for the most part, that is going to remain the same. I would say that for the most part, the Lions are primarily still going to go after a bevy of different types of defensive playmakers to continue to improve the defense. However, though, the Lions, I also believe, are going to go after a wide receiver. And there's a couple of reasons why I believe this. There's a couple of reasons why I think that this is going to happen. The two main reasons I have are this one, and that first one is going to be the Lions have simply just not re-signed back, freaking Josh Reynolds. They haven't brought him back. And that right there is a very interesting statement to me. Now, I will say this. Could it be possible that the Lions are just, holding it off and they're going to sign him back later? Yeah, it's possible. It's also possible that maybe they sign Josh Reynolds and then they go out and draft another wide receiver all the same. I don't know. But I'm just simply saying this. At the time I'm recording this, Josh Reynolds has not yet been re-signed back to the Lions. And it's like, okay, here. I know this also for a fact. Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds are probably the most tenured, duo of players together on the Detroit Lions because Josh Reynolds and Jared Goff have spent the last 3 years together in Detroit. Well, more closer to 2.5, really. But they also spent time together with the Rams. So it's like, listen, these guys know each other very, very well. They've spent a lot of time playing, football together, and they have a great relationship. They have great chemistry together when it comes to being a quarterback and a wide receiver. But yet, for all of that, the Lions have not yet brought back Josh Reynolds, which to me is a little bit telling. What's even further telling is that at the scouting combine, the Lions met with 3 different wide receivers. And if I recall correctly, the ones that they met was the wide receiver from LSU. His name is escaping me at the moment. But the other guy they met with was Xavier, I think his name is Leggett from South Carolina. And the other guy they met was Devontez Walker from North Carolina. Now, I'm going to say this. All of those guys are pretty good wide receivers. They're very good at what they do. But I personally think that the wide receiver from LSU, whose name is escaping me right now, I don't think there's a chance we're going to get him because he's considered a mid-first round prospect. So there's not really a chance of that happening unless Brad Holmes decides to trade up, which I wouldn't put it past him, but I just don't see that happening. The second guy, Leggett, The only thing I have with him is that, yeah, he had a really great year his last year in college, but prior to that, there's not very much of any sort of production. So it's like, is he a one-year wonder? Because I don't know if there's any consistency factor between what he did to begin with versus what he's done now. So it's like, that's a bit of a gamble I'm not really all that keen on. But Walker, on the other hand, Devontez Walker, that is a guy that I'm really, really interested in, and he is the focus of today's episode. So, let's talk about Devontez Walker here as if he would be potentially with the Detroit Lions. When we take a look at Walker, there's a lot of things I like about him just first and foremost right off the bat. Take a look at Walker in comparison to Reynolds. Walker is about an inch and a half shorter than Reynolds because Walker was measured at the combine as being 6'1 and a half. And Josh Reynolds is listed at 6'3", but their size is virtually the exact same. Walker's listed at 193, Reynolds is listed at 194. What does that mean? What that means is that the weight that's on Walker is a little bit thicker. It's not as spread out, which means he should hold up better against potential injury. That's number one. But the one thing I especially love out of Walker in comparison to Reynolds is this. Walker's 40 time at the combine was a 4.36. Reynolds' 40 time when he was at the combine was a 4.52. Walker is absolutely blazing fast in comparison to Reynolds. That right there already is something that I am really interested in because it's like, listen, this guy's the same weight, he's an inch and a half shorter, but yet this dude is almost 0.2 seconds faster than Reynolds. That is a very interesting set of circumstances to me. Then you take a look at the vertical. Walker's vertical was 40 and a half inches. Josh Reynolds, only 37. So again, Reynolds was taller, but yet still was shorter in his vertical by 3.5 inches. So there's that. And then finally, take a look at the broad jump distance. Walker had a broad jump of 11 feet 2 inches, whereas Reynolds' broad jump when he was at the combine was 10 feet 4 inches. So it's like, okay, just from the measurements, you already see that Reynolds is a little bit taller, but in terms of the tests, in terms of the drills, Walker blows Reynolds out of the damn water. It's not even close. Then you take a look at the college stats. This is where Reynolds kind of redeems himself a little bit, but again, I still like what I see out of Walker here. When you take a look at Reynolds when he was at college, he had 164 receptions, 2,788 yards for 30 touchdowns and 17 an average a catch. When you then decide to flip it over to Walker, Walker played at two different colleges. He first played at Kent State, and then he transitioned over to North Carolina for his final year. Whereas with Reynolds, he was at Texas A&M the entire time he was in college. For Walker, for his two teams that he played with, which was Kent State and North Carolina, he had 104 receptions for 1,744 yards, 19 touchdowns for 16.8 an average a catch. Now, I already know some people are going to say, well, David, that's 1,000 yards less and over 10 touchdowns less. Why are you so high on Walker in comparison to Reynolds? The reason why is because I'm keeping in perspective that when Walker was playing was when COVID was going on, and a lot of college teams were impacted. But from what I can tell you from his time at North Carolina, this guy is a playmaker. This guy is disruptive. He is explosive as hell. Because when you take a look at some of these highlights that I'm about to show you, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. This dude is explosive, and he has over-the-top speed, like speed that you can realistically stretch a field, either vertically or horizontally, because he's that damn fast, he's that damn quick. And if there's one thing I can definitely say about what the Lions are doing over the last couple of years, they're adding guys that are not only dynamic and explosive, but they're adding playmakers. And this guy checks off both boxes. And think about the other players that we've acquired that also check off those boxes. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo, Sam Laporta. These are all guys, they're dynamic, but they have a tendency to make explosive plays, and they're playmakers. These are guys that you can build an offense around. And Walker is another guy that, in my opinion, you can do the exact same thing with. Because this guy has the ability to stretch a field, to stretch a defense, which is going to make it even much more difficult for opponents playing against the Lions. Because it's like, wait a minute here, folks. Think about this. Like, just think about this for half a damn second. You put Devontez Walker out there with 4.36 speed, with also freaking Khalif Raymond, and also Jahmyr Gibbs, and also Jamison Williams. I'm telling you this right now. You are going to have cornerbacks, safeties, and defensive coordinators staying up late at night wondering how in the literal hell do we cover all that speed? Because I'm sorry, you're literally dealing with 3 or 4 guys right there that have 4.3, 4.2 speed. It's hard to cover. It's hard to try and get a defense that you can stretch that far out to try and make sure everything's covered, whether it's short, whether it's intermediate, or long. It's going to stress defenses, and it's going to make defensive coordinators have to stay up late trying to game plan against us, especially when you consider the fact that we got Ben Johnson as our offensive coordinator. But then think about this. Not only is Devontez Walker an explosive over-the-top receiver or, a horizontal receiver that can stretch a defense in any number of ways, this is also a guy that has the ability to go up and make very difficult catches, whether it's in traffic or when it's contested. Because if you go to PFF, this guy had a 58.8% contested catch rate in his last year at North Carolina, which means this. When the ball is thrown into a tight spot, when it's a 50-50 ball, the coverage is tight, whatever the case is, this guy has a much higher propensity for coming down with the ball and making sure that the team is able to move the downs rather than being an incomplete pass or worse, an interception. So, in my honest opinion, when you think about it, the Lions should definitely be interested in Devontez Walker, especially considering the fact that they formally met with him at the Combine. Now, where is Walker currently projected in, the NFL draft? Where is he projected to go? According to the draft simulators right now, he is I would say a mid-day 2 to an early day 3 pick. So somewhere in the middle of the 3rd round, early 4th round. It kind of depends on how the draft simulators work out. But the point of the matter is this. Because of that wide spread, the Lions should have a good amount of opportunities, a good amount of chance to potentially grab him, to potentially acquire him. So in my honest opinion, you're talking about a guy that has size. You're talking about a guy that has, the ability to be an explosive, dynamic playmaker. When you think about all of that ability, when you think about that pure, explosive, offensive capability that Devontez Walker possesses, like I said, this offense could literally take itself to yet a whole nother level. Again, you're talking about all the offensive weapons that this Lions offense has. Gibbs, Monty, Laporta, Jamo, St. Brown. You then add Walker in with that, and you're being led by Jared Goff, a top 10 quarterback, and then you're being led by arguably the best offensive coordinator in the NFL in Ben Johnson, who's going to manage, game plan, and make sure the Lions are put into the best possible play as often as possible. I'm telling you this right now. That is an offense that should scare the ever-living daylights out of about 95% of most defenses. Because I'm sorry, you try and take away the passing ability, we got 2 profound running backs behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You can't stop our run game? Okay, fine. We'll let Jared Goff carve you up with short intermediate passes and play action passing. It's hard to think of a way to stop it. And you add Walker to that mix, dude, it's like adding pure octane fuel to a freaking engine for a race car. It's just going to make it go even faster and more explosive. So for me, it's like, dude, why the hell not would you go after this dude? It makes perfect sense to me why the Lions would want to meet with him at the Combine. Because when you think about what he can provide for this offense, yeah, it is a very tantalizing prospect. It definitely gets one's mind thinking. It definitely gets one's imagination going overdrive, in my honest opinion. So for me, it's like, listen, I like this guy's Devontez Walker. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm totally off other guys that I've presented in the past, like, Brendan Rice or Luke McCaffrey. Those are other guys that I still also like. But it's like, listen, when I know that this guy has met with the Detroit Lions, they specifically wanted to meet with him, that definitely takes him up to another tier versus necessarily what I would prefer. And when I take a look at what this guy has to provide, oh yeah, I can understand. I can definitely see the reason why Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, a lot of them would definitely like to sit down and talk with him. So, makes total sense in my opinion. But Having said all that, I think I've done a pretty good job of presenting the evidence, presenting my view and opinion, so I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you enjoyed what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage you all to please subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and I'm thankful for every single one that I can get. But I also want to say, please, make sure you turn on that bell notification icon that's also at the bottom, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you guys turn on that notification icon, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. I also want to encourage you all, please, to make sure you share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can, so that way we can possibly spread this channel as greatly as we can to everybody and anybody that we can. Because the more we share it and spread it, the greater the channel spreads and grows. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope y'all are having a great day. I hope y'all have something that makes you smile and makes you happy. And with that being said, hope y'all enjoyed the content. And until the next time we meet, I just want to say, God bless, have a great day.